Thank you for joining us for Central Georgia Focus. I'm your host this week, Liz Fabian, and it's time for our monthly discussion with Mayor Lester Miller. Ask Mayor Miller is a production of the Center for Collaborative Journalism, and it's our opportunity for us journalists to ask your questions about city and county government and get some answers from the mayor. Thank you again for joining us, Mr. Mayor. We're going to get started. We've had some very heavy rains recently, and there's been some flooding issues here and there around the county. And our 13 WMAZ partner, Nicole Bailey-Coven, asks, is there any infrastructure funds that are set aside to correct some of these kind of low-lying areas that are persistent problems in flooding?
Well, I think there's always some infrastructure funds that are set aside, whether it's through SPLOST or stormwater or even funds we've applied for now. I've been on the phone constantly speaking with GDOT this week, making sure that all of our bridges and our roads were taken care of in a responsible manner. So it gives us a chance to reassess our infrastructure to see what needs to be done and to put a wish list out there. I've also been in discussion with Senator Ossoff in Warnock and Austin Scott and Sanford Bishop about the same things for some long-term solutions. So I think this gives a perfect chance to show them some examples of why we need some more funding here.
Of course, we got a lot of rain in a very short amount of time, and it was kind of an anomaly, but it does highlight some of the problem areas, doesn't it?
It does.
And also, crime and violence seem to be a top topic anytime we ask for questions from the public. And the Macon Violence Prevention Grant Program is about to enter the second phase of grant awards. So how will the county evaluate the progress of those organizations that got money the first time before issuing the new funds in July?
Well, we have a coordinator, Jeremy Grissom, that's responsible for a lot of that, working in conjunction with our partners at Community Foundation of Central Georgia. We just came up on our 1 year, pretty much anniversary of giving out the funds, or at least awarding contracts the last time. We met with our team just recently. All 31 of our members came together to evaluate some of the data that we collected over the last year about engagement and things that may be working, some things that may need improvements on. We just did that probably in the last couple of weeks. We're excited about some of the results that we have, and we're looking forward to moving forward with some additional things. One of the questions we asked them are what are some of the areas you think we can use improvement on? What do you look for in the next round? So we can let the Community Foundation know that's who's responsible for evaluating this. Their team decides where all the funds go, as opposed to Macon-Bibb County. We give them an allotment and some input, and they basically decide where the funds are going to go and how they're going to be used. So right now it's about engagement. Looking forward to increasing the numbers from last year to this year as far as the number of youth that were, and parents as well, that were engaged and that were committed to the process. So I think there'll be some that we build upon that done a great job last year, and they can move forward and get some funds again to be sustainable. What we're looking for is sustainability over a period of time. Despite what people believe, we have made some good progress over the last several months, and we've had a good month this last month, so we want to continue to build on that.
Last October, the Sheriff's Office cracked down on some illegal food vendors that were operating in downtown Macon. People who were on the sidewalk, don't have a permit, those kinds of things. I understand that this is an issue again, so are there any plans to deal with that?
Well, we're already dealing with that. The code enforcement went out there the last couple of weekends at my direction, because we had received some complaints, and make sure that people knew what the law was, make sure they were being held responsible, and I think they got rid of those situations. We'll continue to do that, more so through code enforcement as opposed through the Sheriff's Department. They have other issues they need to address. Code enforcement is well suited for that, and I think they're in a good position to do that. So we're going to continue to make sure that people know the rules and the guidelines. We don't want people not to be in business, but at the same time we have to force the current ordinances that we have on there. So we're going to pay close attention to that, as well as other things going on.
Another issue that's come up that's kind of sort of related to the downtown area and other businesses, that some businesses are opening but they don't apply for an alcohol license. They rely on a caterer to use their license. That was the case with the Full House Tavern that closed in December after a fatal shooting in the parking lot. So are there any strategies to combat this? Because when they do that, they're circumventing the laws that are in place for you to have an alcohol license, that are anti-crime measures and surveillance cameras and those kinds of things.
Yeah, there's certainly a plan in place. Actually, I've been meeting with folks the last couple of days, and we have a meeting tomorrow with all of our partners concerning that issue. Don't really want to get out in public on what we plan to do, but I can tell you there's a policy and enforcement category that we'll be looking at, and the focus that we'll have there. Once we get the cameras, which we think will be about 3 or 4 weeks out, the cameras will certainly help that out. But we want to make sure that people we're good for small businesses, but at the same time, we got to make sure everybody's playing by the same rules. We have a level playing field, and we want to make sure that everyone's following the law. So I think you'll see something in the very near future that's going to crack down, so to speak, on that. But some more policy that I'm going to ask Commission to consider to kind of tighten up those rules and make sure we're all playing by the same rules, basically.
And once those cameras are in place, you'll be able to see what's going on, without having to go out there, and then you can send folks out there. Speaking of those cameras, in that legislation that you passed to enact that, it said it would be paid for by the school zone camera fines that are coming in. There's also a measure at the legislature, and we have one more day as we're taping this to the legislative session. So do you worry that maybe the proceeds will drop down if the fines are reduced at the state capitol, or do you have any other plans to use that school safety zone camera money coming in for other public safety ventures?
Well, we've been monitoring that. As a matter of fact, I was reaching out to our Senator Kennedy this morning. There's some new House rules bills that came over, modifying some of the terms and conditions of the speed zone cameras. Several mayors across the state, as well as those who, like House and County, who's recently enacted the same school zone cameras, just have some concerns about making sure we'll be able to use that for the public safety as we had projected those to. Whatever the rules are, we're going to play by them, whether it's an hour before, an hour after, or throughout the entire day. We don't set the rules. We just follow the rules and the guidelines. We're going to do that to a T. We do have some plans to use that public safety money for more cameras and things this year. The money comes in. At the same time, we've only had them at about 8 locations this last year. They'll be moving on to additional school zones, both public and private, and other areas of Macon. So we expect the number of locations to increase, even if the times decrease. Bottom line is we want to get people slowing down. I've seen some great success so far, and these school zones that I travel through, people are starting to go below the speed limit, which is a good thing for safety of our children.
Now, Diane Crosby asked if the county would consider doing away with the parking meters downtown. She's frustrated because often they're not working, and she's worried she's going to get a ticket, and she says that they're a deterrent to people actually coming down.
Well, unfortunately, the facts did not bear that out. It's not a distraction at all for people coming downtown. The businesses love them as far as getting a constant group of people in and out of their business. If you go downtown on a regular basis, especially on the weekend, you'll see every meter is packed. We've had plenty of parking downtown otherwise in the parking decks. New parking decks to come as well. So I do think that it prevents people from camping out, especially employees that may work downtown, from taking all the spots out from people that can spend money in the places. So there's been no evidence to suggest that the parking meters do anything but help downtown businesses. I think they're here to stay. You expect that when you go to Atlanta. We're a lot less expensive than them. When you go to Augusta, when you go to Savannah, similar situated places, you're going to have the downtown parking issues there, and you're going to have meters there. So I think UDA is doing an excellent job doing that. That money stays downtown and helps be used for other projects down there. It's not Macon-Bibb County operated, so it's not a decision we would make anyway.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And I understand, too, the Urban Development Authority has taken over that operation, so the meters are supposed to be working, so we'll check on that. But we'll also come back and talk about more of your questions, so stay tuned. Thank you for staying with us for this edition of Central Georgia Focus, the Ask Mayor Miller edition. Mayor, in the previous break, we were talking about how there's really only one legislative day left, and by the time this program airs, the legislature would have been closed already. So there's another item of local interest that you've been supporting, and that was changes to the structuring of the Board of Elections and the selection of a election supervisor. Now, there's a bill that's a Senate bill that has not yet gone to the House, and there's only one more day, so it may not happen. But under that proposal, there was going to be a new process for selecting members of the board, because currently right now the political parties submit the 2 names that they want represented. But in this bill, there's also a clearance that comes before the mayor and council or commission to kind of verify those selections, right? And then there's also the provision for the selection of the election supervisor, giving the Board of Elections the opportunity to nominate somebody within 30 days, but that the governing body can reject or select someone else or accept that person. So what are your thoughts about that? And I know that there's a court date coming up of the lawsuit that's concerning this issue. So any insider information as to whether this is going to pass by the time this program airs?
Well, you remember the OLOS took about 4 years, so the speed in Atlanta is definitely not the speed that I prefer to use here in Macon. So I'm not worried about whether it's going to pass or not. That's the bill that the senators and House will have to deal with. I think there's some questions on the House side from speaking to legislators there about the lawsuit, and they want to see what happens in the lawsuit. So that won't happen until May. I'm very confident that whatever, that bill is going to be law, no matter whether they sign it up in Atlanta and goes to the governor or whether it's litigated in court. The bottom line is the Supreme Court of Georgia has changed through recent rulings several parts of the law, and the way that we always implemented that policy and what we intended to do from the beginning is what's going to happen no matter what. So I'm not worried about whether the bill passes or not. We certainly wish they would pass the bill. I think it provides a lot of clarity, avoids needless litigation by any parties, and it helps speed the process up as far as getting the best qualified persons there, as well as members serving on that board. It's something that we haven't instigated, but it's been the Supreme Court and through various cases that come up. So I think all that'll be decided in May. May, I think 22nd is when we have our hearing coming up if it doesn't get dismissed before then. But in the end, we're going to realize that this is a bunch of frivolous litigation. The county is going to ultimately succeed, and we're going to do the best job we can to make sure that we get good, competent leadership over the Board of Elections.
And it's your understanding that the county, the governing authority, the mayor and commission in this case, does have that ultimate authority to appoint someone as election supervisor, right?
Oh, there's absolutely no doubt about it. I don't even think that the Board of Elections disputes that. I think the Board of Elections will tell you that the county has the ultimate decision in deciding who's going to be the election supervisor. And I think the law requires that, and I think recent case law solidifies that.
And when you were talking about that Georgia Supreme Court decision, that's concerning the appointment to the board itself, because under that provision, private entities can't appoint to a public board. Isn't that your understanding? Or?
On that particular issue, yes, but there's multiple cases out that deal with every part of our case, and I think you'll see some action in that very soon.
Okay, there's also going to be an update soon on the Macon Action Plan. The Cotton Avenue Plaza is complete, yet plans for Rosa Parks Square have yet to be implemented from that 2015 plan, and a committee was formed in 2019, the Friends of Rosa Parks Square. So what do you think the holdup is in getting that part renovated and enhanced?
Well, I think that a lot of things. It's hard to talk about in such a short segment, but this is one of those boards that were created in the previous administration, run by the mayor pro tem at that time. And I think the board doesn't go through our normal process about having members come through the mayor's office to a recommendation. There's been some turnover on that board. There's new members that need to come on the board. There's funding issues. I mean, you got to figure out where the money's coming from. I think the first bid they sent out there, nobody submitted a bid for it. And I think you may have had one electrician or something that submitted a bid, but it's not a full.
It was incomplete, so
it was incomplete.
Disqualified.
And I think the second go around they submitted a bid out there, and I think people are getting excited about having the prospect of having the work done, and started talking a little bit too much publicly before there was gone through a committee and made a decision. So I think it probably is going to go out a third time, and hopefully third time is going to be the charm in this situation where they can get that out there, get some bids that come in. The ultimate decision is going to lie with the county commission. It's not going to lie with any board. There's just an advisory board that gives their input, just like most things that we talk about. Not that they're not important, but they can't make the final decision. It's always going to be the commission and the mayor who elected to serve the people and held accountable.
And part of that 2015 Macon Action Plan also included a roundabout right there where the old Women of the South monument used to be, and now it's been relocated to Whittle Park by the Rose Hill Cemetery. So do you think all of that will eventually happen, or are you waiting to see what happens in the next edition of the action plan?
Well, certainly I'm not in favor of the roundabouts myself there. I think it detracts from the area, and I think the park itself needs to be the focus point. With the lights and everything we have there. We'll see how that plays out, but right now there's no funding and no action items that are before us on the roundabout there. I think the park is certainly going to be part of that, and of course the Cotton Street, we've already taken care of that situation there, or that project there.
Of course, downtown is booming, but Sharon Mims asked why there are no new affordable subdivisions being built in Macon. Do you have any thoughts about that?
I think there's plenty of affordable subdivisions being built in Macon. The term is what is affordable these days. you know, right now the interest rates are 8%, so you probably don't have a good prospect of having people coming there for what we traditionally would call affordable. I'm not sure if she's talking about houses to buy or houses to build to rent.
I think she was talking about houses to buy, because part of the question mentioned that there are all these subdivisions in Houston County, and she doesn't see them coming. But I know from going to planning and zoning, there are a lot of developments that stalled in 2008, where companies are coming in and they want to develop, you know, the other parts. The Highlands was one example, right. And they are building more affordable type homes, but like you said, it's one person's affordability is not affordable for someone
The average
else.
affordable home these days is around $250,000 to $300,000, and for a lot of people that's not affordable.
No.
There's a lot of those going out. There's new subdivisions going out by the lake. There's some out on South Bibb County that multiple subdivisions are going on and building, but cost of materials right now and the delay in staffing and the rising interest rates are going to probably put a hamper to that. On the other hand, we are going to be building affordable housing ourselves through our Macon-Bibb County Affordable Housing Fund with $7.5 million that we put aside for American Rescue Plans, and we're going to be raising the rest. And I think we'll start getting some of that money out in the late summer. We're working on all the policies and procedures right now, so there is hope on the way. There's also some other affordable housing that we'll be working on with a public-private partnership as far as the mayor's office is concerned, and you'll see some of that going online in the next 12 to 18 months, I'm sure.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And when we come back, another topic of interest to the mayor is clean streets matter, and they matter to the public as well, so stay tuned. Welcome back to Central Georgia Focus, the Ask Mayor Miller edition, where we're talking with Macon-Bibb County Mayor Lester Miller. Mr. Mayor, at a recent county commission meeting, a gentleman was asking about getting the county to help clean up a private cemetery near Evergreen Cemetery off Houston Avenue. And there are several unkept private cemeteries around town. Are there any plans to assist to keep those burial places in better condition?
I don't know if there's any plans. First of all, Evergreen, I think, was something that Bibb County had to take over a long time ago. We do maintain that part and spend several $100,000 a year keeping it up. The question is, what condition does the community want to pay to have these cemeteries that we didn't start, they're not parks, and that we kind of inherited through default. You know, a lot of people put all this money into getting what they believe is going to be perpetual, you know, maintenance. And the company goes out of business and it falls in the lap of Macon-Bibb County. So I think there's a group that's interested in working and volunteering and doing that. We're going to put some money beside it, but it really depends on how the people in Macon-Bibb County and their tax dollars want to utilize their funds. You want to do it for beautifying our communities where people are living and thriving, or if you're going to do them for some places that maybe is not seen by everyone. Not to say we're not going to give them the respect that they deserve to spend some money there, but it's really dependent on what the people want to spend there. And Evergreen's one of those situations that's very challenging, has multiple entrances to. People use it for dumping outside of there, and we're trying to address that with some fencing and some cameras and some better cleaning up there. But we spend a lot of money. If you look at all the money we spend on all the cemeteries that we have, it's a lot of money to be spending to upkeep something that we didn't intend to happen. It's a little bit different from your cemeteries that you have that may be considered a park where people go to visit, that have funds there that are sustainable for that, and it's something that we've had for a long period of time, as opposed to ones that we get handed off to us.
Speaking of that, the prior administration and the Rickard administration, there was talk of even taking over Riverside Cemetery, which is a private conservancy. Where's the status of that? Are they able to keep that themselves, or are y'all still in talks about that?
Bibb County will be taking that over along with the, since it's right next to Rose Hill as well. The difference there is you have some substantial funds that are there and some property there so you can use for maintenance and upkeep. So we'll be taking that over probably in 2023 and completely. Our attorney's been going back and forth now, working out all the details. At the same time, it's good for a company like that to come to us early when there's still funds there, realizing that at the end of the day, that's something that we're going to inherit in the future with no money. So we've had some very good conversations there. I think it's going to be something that's sustainable. We can group the resources from Rose Hill to Riverside, which are side by side, and there's also some property that comes with that and some money that's in the trust with the state.
And that's right near the river walk too, and it just kind of fills in. Once the whole interchange gets done, there could be just a really lovely walking path that connects everything from Amerson Park all the way down to the Okmulgee Mounds. Now, also, our tax collections were running ahead of schedule in terms of the SPLOST. And at a recent commission meeting, Commissioner Virgil Watkins asked that $500,000 be added to the maintenance kind of public right-of-ways and stuff to hire private crews to assist in what the county is doing. How is that going to work, do you think?
Well, first of all, you got to find people that are willing to work, and that's always a challenge, particularly in that environment. We've always had the funds there. You know, putting $500,000 is a nice gesture. We've had the money there to do that. We just didn't have the staffing or the people to do it. The problem you have is we need to keep people from throwing the trash down. You know, we shouldn't have to clean up after grown folk, is what I say all the time, and I'd rather use our money for some better things for our community other than going by and picking up your trash that you throw out from a local restaurant or perhaps a beer bottle. It's really gets it's a wear and tear on our employees who constantly are out there cleaning up, our crews that we have, even the community service. So we really need to educate people and try to prevent that from happening so we can use that $500,000 to do something better for our community. So it's a nice gesture. We're starting to engage some contractors on that for special projects, but it's not going to be something that's sustainable over a period of time as people continue to throw trash out there. But you know, it's important to our community. That's why we have the Clean Streets Matters, and why we keep having these community-wide organizations that come together, and it cleans our community for a long period of time.
Right.
And then you have a rain like we just had here, and it washes it all out, and you see it more because it becomes uncovered. But we're going to keep working on that, and we're going to keep elephant it one bite at a time, and you know, keep eating the elephant one bite at a time, and that's how we have to do business.
And Janet Walker asked, what can we do to make our gateways into Macon more attractive? She says she's embarrassed sometimes by the high grass and trash and all of that.
I don't know where she's been at. We spent several $100,000 in improving our gateways. We have every exit covered from Rocky Creek down to downtown, and from Bass Road to downtown. As far as the interstates, those are our gateways where people come into Macon. We've done the same thing on some of our highways. We're limited. I think we did get a call that a person that reached out to me about coming in from Jones County. Some of those state roads are not our roads, and we can't do certain things to them as far as irrigation and planting trees and things like that. So we're making all the efforts we can, but we have a $550 million project right in the center of our community right now that GDOT is doing, and until they get through, there's a lot of limitations that we have on improving our gateways. But we're putting signage. We've got contracts. Once again, it's how much do you want to pay for this beautification? We can cut the grass every week if you want to pay for it, but there's not enough tax dollars for that. So we try to be reasonable with the money by using spraying techniques and cutting on a regular basis to try to use our budget, you know, appropriately.
Last question, though, too. I know we've had community-wide cleanups at the beginning of March. A lot of people out there picking up trash, yet illegal dumping is still a problem, and we have 2 convenience centers open and more on the way. What is going to be done to try to target that issue?
Well, we continue to, it's a struggle. Illegal dumping's common, but it's not as much as it was when I got here. So there's a lot less of them, even though we have a few areas that have a lot of them. So one of the things that Commissioner Howell asked for as part of that money that you were talking about earlier is to have some cameras, better camera systems there, because we know there's a couple areas that people love to dump at. We also have about 3 more convenience centers that'll be coming on board as well, as you know, in the next couple of years.
Well, that sounds great.
Yeah, one that's almost
catching
there.
that problem. So we're out of time now, though. So thank you for joining us, and send your questions to mercerccj@gmail.com. We'll see you next month.